Ned here, and today we're going to be taking a little bit of a break from the ambulance to work on some stuff for the house. Don't worry, there's going to be an ambulance update coming soon. Just been waiting on some parts. In the house we have several aquariums, and to go along with those we have a lot of extra parts and cleaning supplies that need stored. We use a lot of these small tubs. Right now we just currently stack them on top of each other, which works okay, except when you need something out of the bottom or middle, it can be kind of difficult to get it out without tipping all the other ones over. So I'd like to build a shelf that can hold these. I think we're going to build something that just kind of hooks underneath the lids so they slide in. I have some extra plywood from when I built the bed for the ambulance, so we're going to go ahead and use those scraps to make this shelf. Let's get to it. I managed to do this whole project using scrap material. The plywood is the leftovers from the bed platform that I did for the ambulance in a previous video. The sliders that go under the tubs to hold them up are scrap material from a cabinet shop, and the pieces I used in the back to fix it to the wall are actually pieces of an old pallet. I did, however, use new screws and hardware. I didn't have scraps of those laying around. I also think it's important to note that I don't have a lot of fancy woodworking tools. I don't have a table saw. I'm borrowing this circular saw for this project from my dad. It's a really nice battery-operated one that I wanted to try out. But I don't have a lot of fancy tools. I rely on kind of helpers and stuff like this saw guide that I'm using here. This allows me to make a nice long rip cut without needing to have a table saw. I've used it in a couple of previous videos, but it's important to remember that you need to account for the blade offset on the shoe of the saw, which I had forgotten to do in my original markings, so I had to remark it. I have two scrap pieces of plywood, and they're both almost big enough, but neither is quite wide enough to use for the other side. Luckily, in this situation, the other side isn't going to be visible in the final build, so I'm going to just cut one down to width and gonna kind of join them together and use them as one piece. I have two pieces, and they measure out to be the right overall width, so I'm going to use this as a good opportunity to learn how to use my dowel jig that I bought recently. The dowel jig was pretty easy to use. I'm not going to go into a lot of details on how to use it. I'm sure there's tons of videos out there on that. I was really happy with that only using 3 dowels here, I was still able to join this board together well enough to keep everything secure while I put all of the rungs in place that were going to hold up the tubs, which added even more reinforcement to these two pieces being joined together. I'm not a very good woodworker, but I'm working on getting better. On that note, if anyone has any suggestions for channels that I should check out to give me inspiration or tips or ideas on woodworking, please leave them in the comments below. It was really satisfying watching these two pieces join together like they did on the first try. Very happy with it. These cabinets are going to be fitted floor to ceiling, so I needed to make sure they were just the right length to where I could still stand them up in the room, but to where they fit snugly up against the ceiling. So this was going to have to be assembled in place. The next thing I needed to do was decide on spacing for the rungs so that I could make sure the tubs all fit in and had enough space to where you didn't have to worry about them catching on each other when you pulled them in and out. Because I'm using recycled materials, I only have so much material to work with, and I can't just go buy more if I run out. So I wanted to keep these sliders as short as possible without making them so short that the boxes may get caught or sit irregularly on them. Once I found that length, I decided to start cutting a bunch of them. While putting the rungs on this board, I took this opportunity to use the rungs to strengthen the join from earlier. It seemed to work out really well, and when this was done, I couldn't really get any movement at all out of the two pieces that I joined together. And this piece isn't visible in the won't be visible at all in the final build, and is not really visible in the current status of it. So I'm happy with this. I wanted to do a test fitting before putting on any more rungs to make sure the spacings all seemed correct and everything looked like it was working just fine. I accidentally split this one. Darn. I guess that's what I get for not pre-drilling. I'll go ahead and put some wood glue in it and clamp it and hope it works out okay. It looks like I forgot to record fixing the split in that previous rung, but I was able to fix it, and it seemed plenty sturdy when I was done and the glue had dried. Cutting all these rungs that were going to work as the sliders for the boxes was kind of time consuming, and I think if I was going to be making any more of these, I would probably make some sort of stop
so that I could just slide the piece in and cut without having to measure each one. Measuring and placing all of these rungs was fairly time consuming as well, and was most of the time spent on this project. I think if I were to do another one of these, I would cut some spacers here as well so that I could just place these and drill them in each time without having to do all the measuring. Once all the rungs were in place, we clamped it to the sawhorses and did kind of a practice fit to get the final measurement on width. This was a lot trickier to test fit on the uneven ground than I was expecting it to be, but it worked out okay. When I built this out in the lawn, I had labeled one side as the wall side, and I had kind of spaced everything with that in mind, but I was rotated 180 degrees, so in order to hide the board that I joined together, I had to put the wall side on the outside of it, and luckily it worked out okay this time. Eventually I'm planning to build this out all the way so that there is cabinets and shelves that stretch all the way from where I'm at here all the way over to the wall on the left, but right now plywood's kind of hard to get a hold of. Before we put everything together in its final form, we did one last test fitting to make sure the tubs would slide in correctly, and then I put the screws into the old pallet boards that I was using to attach these cabinets to the walls. I almost wonder if I just knocked these, if I took the screws out, if you could just set one on top of this one.
I mean, you probably could.
And they'd just both be sliding on this.
I mean, put one on top upside down.
Actually, that would be fine.
Yeah.
Too. As long as the light stuff is in it.
I mean, all the filter media stuff.
Yeah, you could just go.
Thanks for tuning in and watching this video. This was my first video that wasn't about the ambulance, and I hope it was still enjoyable. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought of this video, and if you have any suggestions for things I can do better in the future, or things about this video that you like. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.